Hi everyone, my name is Ken Reed. I'm a Vice President here at System Improvements, and today we're going to be talking about some of the issues that we have seen in the past with root cause analysis in general. And we have found that there's kind of a common theme whenever we're looking at companies when they're having problems doing incident investigations. So these are the ones we're going to concentrate on today, these 6 bad practices of root cause analysis. So I'm going to talk about these in specifics here in just a few minutes, so I'm not going to read through them here, but we're going to hit each one of these items here and give you what we see and maybe some solutions to those as we work our way through. Okay, so first of all, one of the things that we see happen quite often is we start off with corrective actions. I know that sounds dumb. Who would ever start an investigation with the fixes? But it happens all the time. And you've probably seen exactly the same thing. When your boss comes up to you and we've had a problem of some type and somebody asks you, who was involved? It's one of the first questions you get asked a lot of times is, who was it? Who was involved with this? Well, the reason they're asking that question oftentimes is because they're already thinking about corrective actions. Right? If it was Joe, and Joe's a good guy, the corrective action in mind automatically comes to your head is like, well, Joe's a good guy. I wonder what happened. Tell you what, let me talk to Joe, make sure everything's okay, and we'll get this all fixed. Or it was Frank. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? Frank again? I mean, just get him up to my office right now. We're going to fix this right now. And I have 2 completely separate corrective actions in my head, all based on the guy's name. I haven't gathered any data, I haven't done a root cause analysis, but I'm ready to put corrective actions in place. And we see this happen quite frequently with investigations where we automatically think we know the answers before we even know what happened. So you can see in our process, our first few steps on here is gathering data, right? You have to have data in order to do a root cause analysis. So those are the first steps, is gather your information, find the problems, do your root cause analysis, and then all the way at the bottom, that's when you do your corrective actions. Okay? So don't start your corrective actions too early. That'll just cause you problems. To go along with that, I mentioned that data collection. You can't do a root cause analysis unless you have some data to analyze. And we see this as a major issue where companies do not do a great job of collecting the right information. Right? They think they know the answers up front, kind of the first problem we talked about, and they just don't gather the right information to make sure they're not missing anything. This information comes from many different places, right? It can come from interviews, when you interview people. They could be training records that you go take a look at. They could be going out to the physical location and taking pictures. All of these are data collection techniques, right? It's how you get your data. And not only do you have to collect the data, but you have to properly format and display the data so it makes sense. And while some companies try to gather data, they oftentimes write it up in these big paragraphs of data on legal pads and then try to figure out what happened. And humans aren't good at that. Our minds don't work that way. We don't really do a good job of reading data and then analyzing it, right? We're very visual. And what we use in Taproot, a flow chart, is we call it a snap chart. But this is our way of displaying the data so that we can now analyze it as a proper root cause analysis. You can see what a typical snap chart or a flow chart would look like as you put it together. They're very simple to build. They're not hard. You can do them in software. You can do them up on the wall somewhere. Very easy to do. But it's a critical step in your investigation process, is gathering the data and displaying it so that you can properly analyze it. Okay, so again, we use snap charts. If you use something else, that's fine, but this works really well for us. Another problem we see with root cause analysis and instant investigations is not identifying the right root causes. And I know that sounds pretty broad, but more specifically, what we see companies do is they're identifying the error as the root cause. Now, I want to make sure it's clear. I've been doing this 18 years now. I don't think I've seen an instant investigation yet that didn't have a human making a mistake. It's pretty common. I mean, humans just screw stuff up because we're humans. It's what we do. But you can't stop there. You can't just say the human screwed up, corrective action, tell the guy not to screw up again. I mean, that is not a helpful corrective action. And yet, if you see this example I've got here on the screen, now this is from a couple of years ago, but there was a train accident and What was their root cause? Carelessness of the operator. Operator was just careless, not paying attention. The result of the accident was from human error. Well, no kidding. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen an incident yet that didn't have human error. The problem is they are ready to put corrective actions in place here. They blamed this on the operator, right? So they are ready to correct this by doing something to that operator. I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to be.
You're fired!
And we haven't fixed the actual root causes of the problem. So yes, we must identify the errors, and then we do a root cause analysis to understand why smart people make errors. And that's what we're going to be doing next. We're going to be going through the root cause analysis to make sure we understand that. So the next one that we've got, the next problem that we have is, unfortunately, because we are oftentimes looking for error, we automatically start putting blame and bias into our investigations. It's very easy to do. In fact, it's hard not to put blame and bias into your investigation if you don't have a structured process that prevents it, right? If you don't have a process that keeps you from biasing your investigations, it's really hard not to insert this kind of blame and bias, because we're humans and that's what we do. It's very easy to point fingers at another human, right? It's really easy to do. So again, you have to understand what happened before you can understand why, and that whole piece of it is going to be ensuring that you aren't putting blame into your investigation. We have different ways of doing that. In Taproot, we have, for example, part of the snap chart. We have rules built into that you can only put data and facts on snap charts. You don't put people's names on a snap chart. Like I mentioned earlier, Frank and Joe, if I put their names on that snap chart, it's going to bias me as an investigator. So there's things that you can do just by gathering the data to ensure you're not putting blame in. But also, the root cause analysis piece itself is going to prevent blame if you get past the human error part. And if you're stuck at human error as a root cause, you're going to be blaming. It's just the way it is. So by getting deeper into the human performance reasons of why people make errors, that automatically pulls you away from the blame, right? It gets the blame out of there, because I'm looking at human performance problems that we as a company have control over. Okay? So again, blame and bias, blaming people, just pointing fingers, not helpful at all. We'll just end up firing our entire workforce before we actually fix anything, right? So not the way to go, and a structured process helps you with that. This is one that we see happen so often. We find ourselves, and you could do this right now. If you went to your company's corrective action system today, and you took a look at the top 100 corrective actions that are still sitting in your system, and you group them into the three most common categories. If I asked you right now what those categories are, it would take you about 10 seconds to tell me what they are. I'll guarantee it. Every company has the same set of corrective actions that they do over and over and over again. So I'm just going to put them up here, but I'm sure that you've seen these. Procedures, training, and discipline. These are the way that everybody seems to want to fix stuff all the time. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a nuclear trained guy, all right? You will never hear me tell you that training's bad or procedures are a terrible corrective action, right? And I was in the Navy, so discipline, obviously we did discipline. These are important, but if these are the only things that you do, if you can't get away from procedures, training, and discipline, if that's all you do, you're gonna find yourself missing some important corrective actions out there. These are weak, right? These are weak corrective actions, right? Because there's humans involved, right? Think about training. Think about training for a minute. How does training work? Well, first of all, the guy has to go to the training. He has to listen to the training. He has to understand the training. You have to have a good trainer. The trainer has to have a good training plan. And then finally, when the operator gets out in the field, he has to remember the training and then do what the training says. Every one of those steps is an opportunity for human error. And I will guarantee it's going to get screwed up somewhere there, right? Now, that doesn't mean don't train your people. That's not what I'm saying. If you have a low risk, low consequence task that got screwed up and the guy didn't know it, well, okay, training might be the right answer. But if you have a high risk, high consequence kind of problem, kind of task or process that you're involved with, training is not good enough. Because I will guarantee guarantee training will fail at some point in time. If I do it 100 times, it's going to fail 10 times or 5 times, or maybe once, or maybe 60, right? Depending on how good your training is. So if it's okay for it to fail every now and then training is okay. But for high consequence, high reliability stuff that has to work every time, training is just not a good enough single corrective action to put in place, okay? So you can kind of see in here, it's tough for humans to kind of think about what other corrective actions to put in place. As a matter of fact, this is an example we saw one time for one of our root causes, labels need improvement, right? Can you imagine this proposed corrective action? This is a real corrective action we saw one time. They said, tell the people to be more careful when the equipment isn't properly labeled. What a terrible corrective action. First of all, humans are not careful ever, right? Humans do not do this well. I think you and I could both look at this and probably figure out what a better corrective action would be, right? We could all take a look at this. We have what we call our safeguards hierarchy. And the safeguards hierarchy tells us where the most effective corrective actions are and where the weakest corrective actions are. And training people and writing a new procedure and putting a sign up, these are weak corrective actions all the way down here at the bottom, right? And yet, training, discipline, and procedures, there they are, number 5 and 6. The weakest corrective actions you can pick. We really want to work at the top here, right? Can I remove the hazard, remove the target, guard the target? Those are the things we want to do because they're more effective, right? It prevents the human from making those errors in the future. So again, I'm not saying don't do procedures and training and discipline. You have to do those. They make sense sometimes. But if that's all you end up doing, you're kind of stuck. And in Taproot, one of the things that we do is we offer what we call our corrective action helper. So for every root cause that you find in our system, we give you some best practice ideas on how to fix those. So it gets you out of this rut that you're in of just picking those 3 same corrective actions every time. The last thing I wanted to mention in here is another problem we see with root cause analysis and incident investigations is that we think, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but we think we're smarter than we are. Okay, so we see a problem, we think we can get 6 really smart people in a room and we'll just figure it out, right? We'll figure it out because we're smart. We've seen problems, we're smart, we can figure this out. I mean, that sounds great. And I really wish it worked that way, that I could always get the right 6 people in a room to talk about this and get the right answers every time. It just doesn't happen. There's advantages to getting people together to ask good questions and maybe build that chart that we talked about at the beginning to gather data and display it in a proper way. And these brainstorming sessions and learning teams are a wonderful way to do that. I think it's a good opportunity to get some extra experience in there and talk about things. But even with 6 smart people in the room, you're probably missing things, right? These 6 people might be really good at training and procedures and communications and quality control. They might be great at that, but they're not really good with supervision and our company culture and policies and things like that. They're just not good at those. Not their fault, they're just not trained at that. Or maybe how to design a control panel the right way. These guys aren't trained in that. So these 6 people in the room will never ask questions about control panel design because that's not in their repertoire. It's not something that they're trained on. So putting 6 people in a room and saying, go figure it out, it's a good start, and it's a good way to start gathering data, but you really need something a little more structured that's going to force you to go look beyond just 5 whys and learning teams and fault trees. These things all have, let me give you an example of the 5 why. So if we did a 5 why example, and this is the classic one that you see all the time where people are showing you how wonderful 5 whys is. This is out there all over. If you Google 5 whys, this one pops up, right? And it says, a robot stopped working. So why did that happen? Well, the circuit overloaded and we blew a fuse. Well, why did that happen? Well, because there wasn't right lubrication of the bearing. Well, hold on, let's stop right there. I'm okay with that. So we found a problem with lubrication of the bearing. But did we operate the robot correctly before this? Did we install the right robot? Is it being used for what it's supposed to be used for? I mean, maybe we made mistakes before this and it doesn't show up on our 5 why. Because the 5 why, apparently I had a mechanical guy in my room of 6 smart people, and he said, oh, it must be a problem with the lubrication. Let's go ask some more questions about that. And he's going to ask a whole bunch of mechanical questions, which are wonderful. So we probably found a problem with our oil system. Terrific. What about the stuff that we didn't ask about here? And this is just not a structured enough process to ensure you're not missing something. So that is the problem with 5 whys and other cause and effects type systems, is you almost already have to know the answer before you get started. You got to know the right questions to ask. And if you don't know the right questions, you're limited in the answers you're going to get. And these unstructured processes, 5 whys people say is a structured process. It is not structured. It's letting you just ask any questions you want. I know people have some training on how to do it, but honestly, unless you're a serious human performance expert, 5 whys just doesn't work well all by itself. So you're probably limiting yourself on what you're finding when you do these root cause analyses, right? So your knowledge is limiting you to only that knowledge, okay? And that's why structured processes do better. So what can we do to help out? Well, I can speak to Taproot because that's what we do. We give you structure. We help guide you to these 7 different categories of root causes that you might want to go take a look at, see if you have any of these problems. You might find yourself in human engineering, where you're really focusing on design of the system and environmental conditions and everything, the interface between the human and the environment and the machinery. That is something that you probably are not trained in, right? So we're going to force you to go look at items like that. So you're basically going to take this snap chart, this flow chart you built, you're going to do a root cause analysis on that, find some wonderful root causes, and now you have focused root causes to put corrective actions against. Much more effective corrective actions than just tell the guy to do a better job next time. Okay? So, advantages to advanced root cause analysis. It's an expert system. It'll give you guidance to get to the right answers. So you as an investigator don't have to remember everything. We're going to guide you to the right answers. You're going to get the same answers a trained human performance expert would get. One thing I think we miss sometimes is the consistency you get from a structured system like this, right? If I give the same investigation to 3 different 5 why teams, I'm going to get 3 different answers. I'll guarantee it. It's not the investigator's fault. They just have different experience levels. They're going to ask different questions. If you do a structured process like Taproot, we're going to force you. I could give the same investigation to 3 different teams, and they're all going to get about the same root causes, right? It gives you a lot of confidence that the system's working properly, right? And we also recommend that you use the system proactively. You don't have to wait, right? We don't have to wait until somebody gets hurt or you break something. You can go proactively, go look for problems, do root cause analysis on that. Use that corrective action helper that I mentioned to put good, solid corrective actions in place. Another thing that we recommend is don't just limit yourself to health and safety issues. I know that's where most companies, for whatever reason, decide they're going to start with health and safety. And that's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. We want to keep our employees safe. We want to keep the environment clean. We want to have quality products. So health and safety is good. But any place you have humans involved, you can use advanced root cause analysis like Taproot to help you with that. Okay? Any industry could use it. Usually we find that it starts in high-risk, high-consequence industry like oil and gas and nuclear and airline, but you certainly don't have to only be in one of these types of areas in order to do good root cause analysis, right? It's just that these guys have some external people looking at them, so they want to show visibly that they're doing good root cause analysis, and I want them to. I want the oil and gas industry and nuclear industry and airlines. I want them to do good root cause analysis, right? Because it affects me directly sometimes. But even at your company, where you may not be directly putting your customers' lives at risk, you have your own employees, right? You want to keep them safe and keep the environment clean too. So you can use advanced RCA, especially a simple system like Taproot. You can use that any place. And we find that we have users all over the world in all these different industries that are using it. So a lot of opportunities to use the system, and not just for health and safety, but for all these other ideas. You get some really high return on investment on these kind of investigations. It gives you an opportunity to save money, to save lives, give your customers better service by giving them better products and getting better feedback from them. All of this is built into the root cause analysis system that you'll be using. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Again, we really wanted to cover those 6 practices that we find that really limit good investigations and root cause analysis. And hopefully you'll be able to get something out of here that will allow you to avoid those pitfalls and get better results from your investigations. Again, my name is Ken Reed. If you need something at all, my information's here. Happy to help and discuss any problems that you might have. Thanks, everyone.